AI can potentially replace physician jobs, whether that is seeing a patient, diagnosing them, and then giving them a prescription down the line, or the newer concern is being able to read scans like an MRI, CT scan, and X-ray. Are they going to be able to find things better?
ChatGPT, make me a contract. And it gave me a pretty good contract with contractual language and terms. But my lawyer brain clicked on and said, all right, we are missing things. There's all sorts of protections here and risks here that are not included in this contract.
Medicine,
Law, friendship. This is Dr. Long and Lawyer Nik. You're listening to the Medico-Legal Brief.
one doctor, one lawyer, and a whole lot of gray area.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Medico-Legal Brief. I am Lawyer Nik, and I'm here with Dr. Long. You are still in Canada, right?
I am.
Yeah.
We decided to do an extra episode this week so that we can be ahead, stay ahead.
Yep. So has things changed from our episode a few days ago? Granted, our listeners will hear it a week apart, but for you, it's only been a few days. Are you guys still enjoying it? Are you ready to get home? Are you ready to get back?
No, we're definitely still enjoying it. It's the one vacation that we felt like we haven't had to be on the go every single day.
Mhm.
Where we're at, it's called Sunshine Coast in Vancouver, BC area. And there's really not too much to do other than enjoy the lake, camp if you wanted to. So we've just kind of been laying low and just hanging out as a family rather than running from place to place, hitting all the touristy spots.
Have you done any more puzzles?
No, so far we've only gone through two, but I do think we're going to pull out one tonight. We'll see. One of our other friends is coming to visit here
Nice.
for the last 2 days that we're here.
So how is it traveling internationally with kids? Is that easier than domestic travel just because of the nuance of it, or?
No, it's exactly the same. If anything, instead of bringing your driver's license, you just have to bring your passport. But otherwise, check in, check through, everything's pretty similar. Yep, checked bag, carry on, gate checked, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's one thing that the wife and I are looking forward to is when we finally have a little girl and we start going on trips, because we like to travel. We've talked about that before. You know, we're birds of a feather in the sense that we like to go all over the place. We like to check things out. We'll either drive or we'll fly. And the flying is the thing that kind of stresses me out because I'm an extremely efficient flyer, where it's like I try to be there at just the right time. I try to pack just the right amount of stuff I need. But with the kid, it's kind of like chaos theory, you know? Something's going to happen that you're going to need to address at some point.
Yeah, you're going to try to plan for the best, and the worst always happens. But I will say we utilize the flying free under 2 years old.
Yeah.
So it would be a lap child. And we've done that for both of our kids, and a lot of our friends were afraid to do it. You just got to rip off the Band-Aid, because once you do it once, it's just so nice to be able to fly for free, not having to buy an extra ticket everywhere you go. That we have continued to do it.
What's the part of it that's ripping off the Band-Aid? Is it you got to hold your kid for that long? Or
you got to
is it
hold your kid for that long.
infant?
A lot of people get really worried about flying with a baby.
Yeah.
They're worried that the baby can't sleep through the flight, or they're going to get sick, or you just got to do it.
Got to do it. You rip the Band-Aid off. Dr.
Rip
Long,
the Band-Aid off, because
everybody
once you
rip the
do
Band-Aid
it and
off.
you realize it's not as bad as you think it will be. I mean, you're going to have your moments. There's going to be some blowouts on the flight, and you're going to have to change it in that small little cubby of a bathroom on the plane, but it's such a short, amount of time.
That was actually something a wife just added to our baby registry that we didn't know exists, was this kind of holder that apparently you could put soiled or wet items into like this bag and zip it up. It keeps the smell and keeps everything else in to where, okay, you can keep that on you, and when you get home, just kind of throw it all in the wash, as opposed to running around and not knowing what to do with a soiled onesie. But awesome. Well, today's episode is going to be an interesting one and a fun one at that. We wanted to talk about AI, artificial intelligence, and where we see it right now in the legal field and the medical field, as well as where we see it potentially going, what the pros and cons might be, speculation, so on and so forth. So I want to start with a question for you, Long. We're both 90s kids. We were both born in the 80s. So looking back, what is your earliest memory of technology and the use of technology? Because we've come such a long way in the last years that it's scary at times. But what do you remember?
Our generation has seen the most change so far. My first memory would probably be either the 8-track or right into that CD phase, like right in that between stage. Probably more CDs. But yeah, that was kind of my first memory for an actual like wired technology that was kind of new to the field, right?
Yeah.
Listening to music in a small little cassette tape.
Yeah, for me, I think my earliest memory, obviously, we grew up with TVs in the house. So there was always a TV, there was VHS, but from a technological standpoint, it was the Nintendo. So I
Yeah.
remember that being one of the first like pieces of tech that we had was a Nintendo, and we had Super Mario Brothers, and my dad taught us how to play it with the little Nintendo controller that has a directional pad and maybe what, four buttons. And then progressively you just get into the cassette tapes and then the boom boxes, and then all of a sudden you have the CD players, and we get into middle school. And like we've talked about before, we were both athletes. You did tennis, I did basketball and football. Like sitting on the bus with your CD player and your little CD book, where you're like, okay, what do I want to listen to now? And then when you were on the bus, the bus would bump, and then you'd have the skip in the CD, skip in the music, and all the CDs were like, oh, we have anti-skip technology in our CD player to prevent it from skipping. So it's fun to see how it's progressed from at least here to like the iPhone, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I remember when that first iPod came out, and it was this big bulky thing, and then they came out with mini versions. Originally, we had to burn CDs, and then we went to downloading music onto iPod, and then now it's just free to get off the internet, off of the cloud. So it's just amazing how things have changed so quickly. And like you said, CDs into DVDs into Blu-ray, and now those are all basically obsolete at this point.
Yeah.
Everything's just streamed. So just so much change, and obviously the more time that goes by, the more technology will advance. It's scary to think that this is going to be the worst that AI will ever be, right? This is like the worst that it will
Yeah.
be. It will only get better from here.
The other thing to note with that is as technology has progressed, things have become more affordable. When we were kids, if you had a wealthy friend, they had the giant, huge flat screen TV in their living room, and it was an incredible thing to marvel at. Now you can get a giant flat screen for not that much money. You can get a home projector for maybe $50. And back in the day when, projectors came out, it was, oh my gosh, it's such a new, advancement. One thing for us, and I don't know if you feel this way, but as I've gotten older, I've become more detached from the trends of technology. I've been a little bit more set in my ways where it's like I have my iPhone. I don't need every single new iPhone, or I have the TV and it's worked for 5 years. I'm not going to go out and buy the new TV. So I kind of miss the aspect of, okay, what's new? Why is it new? Why it's so much better? Like I couldn't tell you the difference between 1080 and 4K. I have no clue, but that's because they don't pay that much attention to it.
I think you're just getting old, Nick, because this is literally what my parents or my grandparents would be saying. I am quite the opposite. I like to stay
Are
on
you
top of these things, and when anything new comes out, I might not personally buy it, but I'll seek out how to get my hands on it.
really?
Yeah, whether that's a friend that has bought it, or maybe you go out to the store and kind of play around with the new technology, because it's important to stay on top of it. And that was the one thing I told myself, is that as I got older, I wanted to stay on top of the new trends, not necessarily to like keep up with the Joneses, but I just don't want to fall behind. Because I see in the medical field, like I see older doctors who did not grow up with computers. They're sitting there typing with two fingers. I do
Yeah.
not want to be that doctor sitting there typing with two fingers. Like
Yeah.
as technology advances, I want to advance with them. So
Mhm.
it's funny you're aging yourself, Nick, and you don't even have a kid yet. Your kid isn't even born. Wait until they're teenagers.
When you were in med school, because this happened in law school, like our professors or our mentors who had graduated years earlier, they would say, "You're so lucky because when I had to take the bar exam, I had to hand write everything and I had to get in and with my pencil and all that." And for us, a lot of it was just online or super, super easy, especially when it came to maybe law school finals, where
Hmm.
you could literally just go online, do all your testing, you could type everything up, and that was that. You could type up a paper, but like back in the day, right? Quote unquote, back in the day, they had to, spend hours writing things with a number two pencil. And yeah,
Hmm.
so that's what we got in law school. Did you guys have the same thing, at least from
Same
the
exact stuff,
house?
but
Yeah.
the funny thing is that yes, their tests and everything was handwritten. If they needed to look something up, they had to go find a book. But that was the nice thing about it, is that they were limited in what they had. So they had only so much time to go look these things up. For us, technology is literally at the fingertips. And so we're expected to know more. We're expected to find it more quickly. So it's a different sort of stress. Yeah, we're not having to sit there and write things and erase things and physically do it, but we have to be able to come up with the information more quickly. And so utilizing the technology to our advantage versus falling in between the cracks and getting overwhelmed by it all.
That's a good segue into AI and artificial intelligence because in my previous career in aerospace and defense, in my position we were in, we didn't use AI because for anybody who's ever worked for a government contractor or in aerospace or even for the government, there are a lot of protocols to confidentiality and proprietary information. So with AI kind of being more of an open source system, we couldn't just put our information into AI because then we would be releasing proprietary information out into the nether sphere. And we couldn't do that. So there was no AI in the company until the last year or so when they created their own version of ChatGPT, which was internal for, hey, here's how you can write a better email. Here's a thesaurus or a glossary. And it started working. So that started evolving, but I never had a use for ChatGPT. And then finally, I'm an adjunct professor and I teach negotiation. So I bring students on competitions, and we were sitting there and we were trying to figure out a strategy for a certain negotiation prompt. And one of the students said, well, let me just ask ChatGPT. She typed in our prompt, and all of a sudden it spit out all these legal issues. It spit out all these considerations, things that we have touched on, but things that we had also never considered. And I was like, wow, this is actually a very strong tool.
Yeah. And we're going to dive deeper into it, but it is definitely a good and a bad thing. And I'm kind of curious how it's going to be a bad thing in the legal world, but I definitely have a couple of concerns when it comes to AI in the medical field. It is amazing what it can do. And again, this is going to be the worst that it ever will be. And it can only get better from here, which is kind of scary because then I think back to those movies like I, Robot with Will Smith or any of those apocalyptic AI taking over the world. We're on our way. Hopefully we can mitigate though.
What's the joke? It's like, that's how you get Skynet.
Yeah,
Like
right.
that's how you get Skynet. Robots taking over the world. So let me ask you to start. What is your general experience with AI? You're obviously somebody who likes to keep up with technological trends and the tech, and you have an interest in that. So what has been your experience with AI and the use of it?
Yeah, I mean, just using when ChatGPT came out, just utilizing it in a very minimal capacity, because I unfortunately was already out of school at that point, so there wasn't any utilization in an educational perspective. But maybe a question amongst friends, and we wanted an answer quickly, we would ask ChatGPT. And then, of course, with this podcast helping us create some of the artwork, some of the thumbnails, even giving us ideas on topics like that was kind of more when I was a little bit more hands-on with the AI component. Only more recently has it bled into my actual career, my actual job. I would say 2 weeks ago, we officially were piloted the first version, essentially, of the AI helping us in the medical field. I think it's been in the works for a couple of years, but there's just been so many different versions, and they've been trying to perfect it and also partner with the main EMR out there right now, which is called Epic. So get finalizing that partnership and then getting it integrated into the system before we could actually roll it out has taken years and years. And so we finally were able to play around with it and actually utilize it, and it's been life changing. It's definitely a game changer.
And for those who may not have listened to all of our podcasts yet, but EMR stands for?
EMR is electronic medical records.
Okay.
So that is
Yep.
going to be the record that every patient gets, and all of their notes, all of their images are scanned into what we call the EMR. It's basically the database that holds all of our data for patients.
Now, are those databases, is it the same database used across all of medical, or is there, just like anything, a specific database for one hospital system and then another hospital system might have another one?
Yeah, they're competitors, right? So just
Mm.
like if you were to have Google versus Apple, there are different brands. There are obviously the biggest ones are Epic, that is actually based out of Wisconsin, and then there is Cerner is the second and biggest. But yes, there are regions and pockets. But I would say about 60% of systems, if not a little bit more, are on the Epic system.
Makes sense.
It is the best one. I've played around with so many different ones. It is the most easy, user friendly system out there for sure.
It-
How about you? Did you get any? Was there wasn't any AI during your law school? I mean, it hadn't even come out yet. It was probably a couple years after that.
Yeah, so AI it did not exist. I think the first sense I got with AI was actually when we were in aerospace and defense in my organization. Our primary job responsibility was to evaluate government contracts. So essentially what would come in is we were a part of supply chain, and our suppliers would give us proposals. We'd send out a request for proposal and RFP for parts. They would come back and they'd say, here's what we can do, and here's the labor, and here's the material, and here's the overhead. And we would evaluate those and then take it back and negotiate with the suppliers. So there was an individual that actually set up a meeting with us, and he goes, look, all this evaluation that you're doing, all this fact finding, all of this going on site, talking to people, I have a system that can kind of bypass it. So here's what you do. You do all these inputs, you put in the direct material amount, you put in the labor hours, you put in the labor rate, you put in what type of profit you want to make, and it'll spit out exactly what the value of that contract should be. So from there, we said, okay, this is awesome. How do we make it work? And he says, well, we're going to use artificial intelligence. We're going to use AI to do it. Okay, cool. Can you show us how the AI works? Well, the technology isn't there yet. And that was kind of a hard plug of, well, it's coming, but like it still hasn't been defined. It still hasn't been used. So in the future, it's going to work out. But right now, it's not there.
So have you do you have any lawyer friends currently actually using AI in the courtroom or in anywhere else around the legal gathering evidence?
No, that's a great question. So in talking with, my lawyer community, we haven't actually had the AI conversation. So yeah, in current friend group, we try to meet up every couple months and we'll talk about these issues. We have yet to really talk about AI, but what I have noticed is when I'm working with the students, that is when the AI starts really coming out, because the use of Chat GPT for these legal prompts and legal issues has been really good for us toying out how to negotiate prompts. And I'll give you guys some background. We do negotiation competitions, and what ends up happening is you have 30 or 40 law schools attend these competitions and send a team of 2 or 4, and they actually sit down and they negotiate against each other. So they're given a prompt, each side is given confidential facts, and it's usually about an area of law that has a theme or is kind of obscure. So actually we'll be attending one in a few weeks, which is a sports law competition. So they'll send out the prompts and we'll actually put those prompts into Chat GPT and say, okay, what kind of issues are you seeing? And it's supposed to call out the legal issues or different ways of thinking about things, but ultimately it's on us as a professor and the students to really toy out what is the best way to use the information. That's a core understanding with Chat GPT or any AI features. It's going to give you information. You as the human still need to vet the information and figure out how you're going to use and apply the information that's given.
Have you found when utilizing AI that it has been incorrect yet? Have you noticed that?
Yes, and the reason being is because from a legal perspective, I will put in legal issues into Chat GPT. And then when the information is kicked back out, a lot of times it'll add hyperlinks as to where it's getting the information. I will look at the hyperlink and I will find that maybe the website is for a law firm in Washington State or a law firm in New York State, or maybe an international law firm. So I might be typing in an issue here in Texas, and the prompt that I type in fits exactly what a prompt is for somebody's article that they wrote 2 weeks ago, and it pulls that. But I have to keep in mind that's for somebody writing about Washington state law, not Texas law. So there are a few bumps in that manner. And this is important with ChatGPT. And I'm going to ask you if you have the same use for it, because in medical, you have to get really detailed, right? But in the law, the more detailed you are, the more concise you are, the more accurate your answer could be.
That's exactly how it is in the medical field. And that's why there's a lot of chatter about how AI can potentially replace physician jobs, whether that is seeing a patient, diagnosing them, and then giving them a prescription down the line, maybe decades down the line, being able to do that in place of an actual physical person to do it. Or the newer concern is them being able to read images, right? So scans like an MRI, CT scan, and X-ray, are they going to be able to find things better than a physical radiologist can find? I think all of that is still being kept at bay. I do think that the human connection is very important. But you're right. The more information, the more detail that you can put in can absolutely alter the correct answer. And that's where it's so important that in the medical field, the physician still stays at the head um, of that team making the decisions, because we get the training, we see the little nuances even though the AI, if you don't put in every little detail, for example, if you put in 3 details, but then you skip the fourth, that may completely alter what the diagnosis or the differential diagnosis could be. And whereas a physician, you may leave out that fourth, but at least we know to ask what that fourth detail should be or could be. And so that is the one thing keeping AI at bay currently. But I do see a push that may be utilizing AI to make things a little cheaper, whether that is hiring cheaper personnel, cheaper staff, who then can utilize AI to help diagnose patients. But again, hopefully that's not the direction that we're heading. But I can see that how it could be used poorly in that sense.
It's funny that you mentioned that because just last night, and again, my current role is I have a real estate company with my wife, and I am working a situation in which we are trying to set up a specific contract for what's called seller financing, where the owner of the home gets paid by the new buyer and the owner acts like the bank. Well, in order to do that, I need to create an ironclad contract that allows for the details and the terms to be accurate, protects everybody. I'm not acting as a lawyer in this situation, but I want to make sure that the contract is good so there's no liability on me in the future for figuring out this investor buyer seller relationship here. So the first thing I did is I went into Chat GPT and I said, hey, let's break down some terms. So it breaks down the terms for me. Okay, those are good considerations. And then I just thought, well, what if I just asked it to do a contract for me? I want to kind of see what that looks like. And I don't trust Chat GPT contracts. I will actually go to my network because a big thing in law is you don't recreate the wheel. If somebody has already made a contract, you grab that, you use it, and you edit it to the way you see fit. I said, ChatGPT, make me a contract. And it gave me a pretty good contract with contractual language and terms and where like the names and signatures should go and all that. But my lawyer brain clicked on and said, all right, we are missing things. This is great from a standpoint of you're giving me exactly what I want, but there's all sorts of protections here and risks here that are not included in this contract. So to your point of having somebody who is knowledgeable oversee what's getting used, I think that's really important and really fascinating too, because if you don't have that oversight, I might end up having a contract that is completely null and void or increases my liability or increases somebody else's liability, and that's not good for business, and it can definitely have you end up in court later on in life.
That's kind of what I feel too with what I'm dealing with. I can update you guys on how I've been introduced to AI in my career here in the last couple of weeks. Is that we are utilizing it in patient rooms. So when I go into the room and we're having a discussion on what their issues are, I turn on AI and it sits there and it listens to us. And it's really cool how it does this. But we can sit there and have a conversation for 30, 40 minutes. I can turn it on and off, and it will know how to combine similar complaints together and put it in under one paragraph and then a new symptom under a different paragraph. And then it knows how to remove or leave out all the small talk. So I can come in and have a conversation about how their vacation was and what they had for dinner last night. And if we don't talk about diabetes, they won't put in the dinner component. But if we do talk about diabetes, they know to add in dinner, they had this. And it's really cool to see AI do all of those things, but I still have to go back after the fact and review to see what they've put in and if it is in all the right places. I would say 95% of the time it is in the right place, and I have to just make some small tweaks. It's getting there for sure. And in the medical field, it's going to be a really strong tool, but only if used appropriately and correctly.
So this opens up the ML brief conversation where medicine meets the law. I have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
When you're utilizing AI in that sense, do you have to inform your patient that you are using a software that will be recording them and taking their information and using it in a certain manner?
Absolutely. We have to tell every single patient. And so my staff that rooms the patient who does the vitals and check, they give them a preview of it first. They hear this is a pamphlet. So you know a little bit about what the AI is, how it's utilized, where it gets saved. It's all only utilized for you and for your chart. They go through all those details. And then I come in and I reiterate, I'm going to be utilizing it this. I would say 90% of the time, most patients will allow it. because they understand. I tell them it makes the visit go a little bit more smoothly. I don't have to sit there and type while I'm talking to you. I can just have a conversation. And it has made me a lot more efficient. I get the second permission, the second okay from them. And as long as they're okay with it, I hit the go button and we're good to go.
With all softwares and just tech in general, some of the value, especially in free use or even paid use, is the fact that you're collecting data, right? So is the software that you're using, is that specific to the medical field in which it's not going to be released out into the world where somebody else can negatively use somebody else's confidential information?
Correct. This is why it's taken so long to get truly integrated into the medical world, is that they were working on that partnership. Like I said, that EMR or Epic, that system that we have been on for a long time to write our notes and to keep patient data. They were working out how to integrate the AI component into their system. And so now everything that is discussed in the visit, it actually populates into the note directly. That's why we have to get permission, because these details or everything that we're going to be talking about is going to be saved into their chart. It's not going to be easily accessible, but there's always the concern about breaching and data release, but that goes for anything that is in the system already. So the same protections apply.
I didn't do the research on it, but I'd be interested to know whether or not there's any sort of federal policy or state policy, HIPAA-esque, that is going to or trying to dictate AI in the medical world. I think that'd be a
I
very
don't think
interesting
that there's any legal or laws out there yet, but we will need to for sure. At this time, they're utilizing the AI components similarly to just any patient data, as HIPAA laws apply to it. So it's all patient data. It cannot be released to anyone else. It's the same sort of rules for now. But I do know that as AI gets stronger, they're going to need more laws and rules to just keep the boundaries in place and the guardrails there.
And I don't know if the software exists on the legal side. It sounds like you entrepreneurs out there or you AI experts out there who are working it in the legal field, if it doesn't already exist, that platform that you guys are using is probably really applicable to a lawyer consultation, because as lawyers, you sit in a client consult and they do the exact same thing. They give you all the background information. They tell you about their day. They tell you about their kids. They tell you about how much money they have. And then they tell you about the car accident they got into. And so you're trying to siphon out what's important and what's not. I could see an AI system doing that exact same thing, where afterwards you go back and you listen to the notes and it says, here are the main legal issues. Here are your main legal concerns. As a side note, dog's name is Red and daughter's name is Samantha. And you can siphon out what you actually need.
And I'm actually curious, because the one thing I thought about in a courtroom is those transcriptionists, right? The people who type out everything. Their jobs are the most at risk at the moment, because AI would be, that's probably where it would replace it the quickest or the soonest, is just dropping in, turning it on AI, everyone, the judge, the attorneys, all having their arguments. And then at the end, it just pops out this, because that's basically how we're utilizing it in the medical field at the moment. But I wonder what it's like in those little circles, the transcriptionists who went through all this schooling to learn this secondhand typing, what they're talking about and what they're doing about it. How are they fighting AI or saying AI is bad, of course?
For those of you who don't know, you have a court reporter sitting in a courtroom, literally typing up things on the record. So they have a little tiny screen. And as Dr. Long had mentioned, they have a very specific keyboard that allows them to type in shorthand, and they have to go get training for it. And it allows them to keep up with the words that are being spoken. In some instances, they're also recording what's going on. So there have been many depositions, because we'll have these court reporters at the deposition to transcribe the conversation. That's how you get these big old deposition books that are 100 pages long. They're actually typing up everything in real time. They listen to the recording, they go back and they make the edits. And there's a lot of schooling and a lot of detail, and that's a career. To your point, Long, if you can just have AI listen in, accurately transcribe. I mean, we use it for our TikTok all the time, where as we're posting our shorts, TikTok will come back and give us our captions, and sometimes it'll be a little off, but for the most part, it's pretty accurate. So you could essentially be getting rid of a very important person in the courtroom and trading that for AI for cost efficiency.
Right. So what would you say? Do you think AI overall is a good thing for society, or is it a detrimental thing to society overall across all fields, not just law, not just medicine, but just overall?
I think it's a good thing, because access to information is a good thing for everybody. I think being able to have access to information is good for the individual, it's good for the society, it's good for checks and balances. There are some negatives that come with it where you're maybe losing creativity. You're losing the ability to communicate properly. We use it for our podcasts all the time where I might have an idea, and instead of, and we're both artists. You and I have both been able to sit back with a pencil or a paintbrush and create something. But we could do that if you give us a week. We could do all of our thumbnails, but AI does it for us in 30 seconds. And it's our vision come to life, but it restricts that creativity a little bit. Some people might get a little lazy and complacent. That's probably the negative. But overall, I'm hoping that's a positive. I just hope that AI doesn't go in such a manner where it's so robotic that it starts taking the life and the color out of things because people are just complacent and robotic as well. What about
Yeah,
you?
I
What do
I
you think?
agree. I agree with you. I'm kind of on the fence. I don't want to say good or bad. I think it's time will tell at this point. We're still so early in its technology and its growth. All the negatives, the things that you hear, right? Students in college utilizing Chat GPT to write their essays. It's hard to distinguish that sometimes, and so you're right. Not only stunting that creativity, but stunting that education. Like they're not learning these things on their own. Then I think back to math class. If you go back all the way back to when we were utilizing calculators, and all of our teachers used to say, you need to learn how to use that calculator or do that math in your head.
89, the big one, the big block
Yeah,
brick.
huge ones. Calculators are there for to utilize when you need it, but you still need to be able to do all this math in your head because once you get out of the real world, you can't be carrying a calculator. And here we are now carrying out a calculator, and we utilize it for everything. So it's hard to know where this is going, but it has almost dumbed us down. So I would say
Yeah.
our math skills are no longer as good as they used to be, unless you're going into a field that utilizes math on a daily basis. The general population, including physicians, we're not that great at math. Simple math, maybe, but even when you're asking to do percentages, fractions, it just becomes a little bit more difficult. And I can only imagine that was not how it was 30, 40 years ago when the calculators weren't used as proficiently. And it is a little concerning. And I can only worry about where our kids, our grandkids will be at that time. But maybe it will fill a void, a different void. Maybe it will increase another capacity, a different tool or a different skill set that they will have. Who knows? It's just it's so hard. I'm still on the fence, and I can't say yes or no to it yet. But I'm embracing it.
I think embracing it is all we can do right now because we don't know if it's going to be for the good or for the bad. Again, like that's how you get Skynet. It's going to be horrible if we have Terminators rolling around controlling everything. That's going to be absolutely, if we're in the Matrix, that's not a good point to be.
Yeah.
But to your point, I think that AI, when you think of math, like lawyers aren't that good at math either. The problem is if you don't know how to do something, the problem that we see is with your math example, if I'm just typing in the math to chat GPT or an AI or what have you, how do I know that that's accurate? How do I know that the number that's being spit out is accurate? I did that last night with the seller financing. I put in my numbers just for a quick thing, but I know numbers. I know that by reviewing it, I can double check the math, make sure I'm getting to what I need to get to. And sure enough, it was accurate. What if it's giving you the wrong information, it's inaccurate, and you don't know any better? That's a scary part. Are they
But it
using
kind of bringing that up, I don't want to politicize this, but aren't we kind of already there in terms of just like political news? We all get
yeah.
siphoned into left wing, right wing. You have no idea what information out there is accurate, what information is not. There's so much AI created content, news. We're already there. We're in a place where just because you read a news article, you have no idea if it's truly accurate. And how do we go about verifying? Because you're going to be able to find more news articles saying it's wrong and saying it's right, or saying it's fake and saying it's real. It's so hard. I have no idea what. You're right. That's a great question. We're already to that point, though, is that AI is being overutilized and we have no idea what to trust.
Was listening to a Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V podcast the other day about AI and how to use it for small business and tools. And he actually made wild points. He's like, there are deep fake videos of me out there right now with me saying things I've never said. So it'll be his voice, his image, his what we call NIL, name, image, and likeness on a video that's going viral where he's telling people to do one thing or another. And he's a public figure. He's got an insane following. So then all of a sudden you get all these people adhering to, oh wow, that's awesome. He wants me to do this. I'm gonna go try this. And he could come back and say, I never wanted that for you. And when you get into politics, all it takes is a good deep fake video of a world leader saying something or doing something that in a moment's time, because information's so fast, it can have detrimental impact. All it takes is a deep fake of a leader threatening the wrong country, and before you know it, there's another war that breaks out. And that's actually very terrifying. Very terrifying.
That's the thing, is that can be done now. It's already that good to be able to make those deep fakes. And I'm surprised it hasn't been utilized more, or maybe it hasn't. It's just being covered up. I have no
Yeah.
idea. That's the thing. It's so crazy. That's the crazy rabbit hole that we can go down having this conversation. It's scary.
It's very scary. Bringing it back to medical and law, when you're looking at your staff, your nurses, your assistants, are they using AI in their job duties, or do you think there's going to be a time and place where your nurse is non-existent because you have the robot that circles around and tells people where to go and triages them and so on and so forth?
No, the one thing you'll find is people who work in the medical field are very against change, even if it's supposed to make their lives better. Just the rollout of the AI currently, there's only like 10-15% utilization. It's usually the younger generation that's utilizing it. Anyone older than me, they've been so hesitant. It's crazy because it's literally would help them the most because they're using the system in an already clunky way. They're not even typing in the rooms, whereas us in my generation and younger, we're already typing in the room. We're able to have that conversation with the patient along with writing our notes. We're out on time. No, it's not being utilized in the staff, whether that's the MA and the nurses right now. I don't foresee it because, again, there's always a pushback for change. Everyone likes the status quo, even if it's not the most efficient, but everyone enjoys the status quo because they feel safe in it.
And you don't want to, I'll say what is probably the darker version of this. You don't want to influence something that could probably replace you either. If you're a nurse, you're not going to be running around saying, I want the new AI nurse robot to help me out with my job duties, because then that might make your career obsolete. And that's the
Yeah,
scary
I
part.
mean, I will say that we do have blood pressure cuffs, right? There's automated blood pressure cuffs that could be easily be built into like a door or something in a hallway that a patient can walk down by themselves and stick their arm in and record it, and it goes right into the EMR. We have that technology now, but we don't do that because it's very important to create, because patients are still considered customers in the medical field. They are there to feel better, to feel good, to feel like they've been not coddled, but been helped through their pains and aches and gotten through to a treatment and something to make them feel better. And
Yeah.
that whole journey involves that person to person interaction, whether that's with your MA, the front desk, the nurse. So I do think that in the medical field, I don't think patients will ever be okay with a robot from start to finish doing their entire exam and giving them a diagnosis. I mean, I think us utilizing technology and AI is okay for the patients, but I don't completely replacing us would not. And that's why I do feel very secure in where I'm at. But I can see some of the hesitation from other colleagues who are a little bit more worried.
Now, you've done, what is it called? Telehealth or like virtual medicine?
Telehealth or telemedicine.
What if there is a way in which you had your AI version of Dr. Long that could do telehealth for individuals when they call in and they just have a simple cold or whatnot, and it registers everything that they're going through, and you have a version of you on screen talking to them, even though it's not you? How would you feel about that? An AI system managing a patient for something that's minor that might increase your efficiency, might increase your patient count, so on and so forth. Like, what do you think
So
about that?
believe it or not, we're kind of already there. So there are
Really?
telemedicine companies out there that utilize that same idea. It is that patient comes in, there are questions that it asks, and then it will prompt more questions to get to a final diagnosis. That's kind of already being utilized. When I go into my inbox, there is an AI component that will create a answer to the patient's question so that I can preview. And if I want to utilize it, I can utilize it. I have not utilized it because I don't like the way it verbalizes it and the way I try to explain it to patient. I try to bring it out of that medical terms and just bring it down to layman's terms as much as I can. And AI is not able to do that as efficiently or as easily yet. But no, we're utilizing AI in those components already. I just think that we don't notice it. Sometimes the responses that you get if you were to send a message could be coming from a nurse, it could be coming from a medical assistant, or
Mhm.
it could be coming from either of them using AI to respond.
It's just a quick click. I want to go with that one. I'm off for the day. I wait for a response.
Yeah. How do you see, like, what is the best case scenario for AI to be utilized in a courtroom, like in a loss perspective? What do you think would be the most efficient, most beneficial way for AI to be utilized if there were the guardrails there in place to keep it in line so that it never strays out of it?
If we're talking general practice, the use of AI in drafting pleadings and contracts and discovery requests, which discovery is, you're asking for evidence and communications, that could be a really big benefit. Again, you're checking and adjusting. You want to make sure that if you're having AI draft a pleading, that you're still reviewing it at the end to make sure it's accurate and you're making edits. That would be super, super important. That probably is already being put in use. So, if it's there for the medical field, it's probably there for the lawyer field because everybody's trying to use AI in the most efficient manner that they can right now. When you're looking at a courtroom, you don't want to necessarily remove the human element of the courtroom. You want a judge sitting up there, really hearing the case, really hearing the facts, making decisions based on quality arguments while also taking in consideration the human element of everything. Same thing with our jurors. You want a juror that's being able to sit in there and use their human perspective as well as their life experience, as well as their perspective of what's going on in the case to make a final decision. If you're not careful, you can have AI come in and it can be very black and white, cut and dry, where the statute says this, you did this, I've now analyzed it, you are guilty. End of story. The punishment is going to be 5 years in a federal penitentiary, right? You could have that and it's too cut and dry. The other thing that you have to rely on that's scary is biases from the people that are developing the software. So if you have a person that's developing AI and telling AI to be more conservative or more liberal or more risk adverse, like that could also impact things. So in a courtroom, I could see standpoint of efficiency, maybe in maximizing efficiency on the court's calendar. How can you make sure that you're getting everybody on the docket? Maybe there's some data that's run where it's, hey, based on this type of trial, this on average over the last 5 years has ran you 3 days. So we can maximize efficiency if we put this trial here, or if we start the trial at this time. You can look at the numbers of how many, what lawyers are coming in, primarily what they're looking at, what they're arguing. You could look at win rates, loss rates. There's so much data that can be pulled from it, but the courtroom as a whole should have a very, very, very human element. You could even get to the point where AI is analyzing the evidence put forth, and that might be something that might be more efficient. AI analyzing a piece of evidence, whether it's a photograph or whether it's a video, maybe it's speech, and giving feedback on, is it doctored? Is it accurate? What is the possibility of the angle in that photo that what you're seeing or what's being presented to you is accurate? That's the other scary thing about AI, where you can have AI doctor up a lot of that stuff. So I read something somewhere where it was like, hey, if you are going to commit a crime, and this, not legal advice, everybody, not legal advice, but somebody posted, if you're going to commit a crime, put on a fake finger on your hand, because if somebody snaps a photo of you committing that crime, you could argue in court that it's doctored AI because AI had that weird thing where all the fingers and hands were all messed up for a time being. And that's kind of true. It's like, we're going to get to a point where you're always arguing, that's AI, that's not me. How can you prove that that is actually me from a photo, from a video, from speech, from a recording? That's where some things might get a little crazy.
Yeah, I guess to play devil's advocate to what you were saying, I thought what the courtroom was supposed to be is a neutral place and judged based on evidence. So when you said human component, the human component is what brings in those biases. Like female may feel more closeness to the victim or perpetrator if they were female. That's what you want removed in a case, I would assume. So isn't AI, wouldn't that be better for the courtroom to utilize it in a neutral perspective where it doesn't care if it's male, female, black, white. It just cares about the evidence, what's put forth, and whether or not it's guilty or not guilty.
Yeah, you're spot on with that. You want the jurors and the judge to remove as much bias as possible. And that's why we have what's called jury selection, or in Texas, we call it voir dire. In other states, they pronounce it differently, but the way I was taught is voir dire, where you're actually going through and you're trying to select the jurors, not based on who you want there, but you're essentially Xing out the people you don't want there. The way it works, if you're ever going to jury duty, at least in Texas, is there'll be 50 potential jurors in there. And as the lawyers and judges are asking you questions, they're marking through who they don't want there. And as you go down the line, juror number 1, attorney 1 said no. Juror number 2, attorney 1 said no. Juror number 3, attorney 2 said no. Juror number 4 has no X's against them. Therefore, they're going to be the first one that's brought in because nobody has a problem with them. So that you want to get to that neutrality. The thing is, you also kind of want the ability to process why somebody did something, because in the law, intent is very important. Intent can elevate a crime from maybe manslaughter to murder. And if you're elevating from manslaughter to murder, you could be elevating from 20 years in prison to the death penalty. So being able to really siphon out, did this person have the intent? What were they thinking? What was in their brain? Have I ever felt that way? In Texas, with us being a really red state, guns are super, super, super prevalent. The castle doctrine and the ability to protect your house and claim self-defense when you need to do so is a big thing. Well, you need to be able to understand what was going on in that person's mind if that's what happens. Because if you have an individual who's killed somebody and they're claiming self-defense, well, why? Why did they feel like their life was threatened? What was the conversation that was going on in their head where they felt like they needed to defend themselves with lethal force? And that's where you want the human perspective to really play out. Okay, if I was in that person's situation, how would I feel? Would I feel threatened? Is that a reasonable standard, or is it not? AI might say, no, sorry, you shot somebody, you're going to jail. Or, well, the person stepped onto your yard, he crossed that threshold, and you shot him, so it's self-defense. What if he was the mailman just delivering a package? You want to be able to have somebody to siphon out the nuances and the details, and that's where you really want the human component to really play into effect there.
Good points, Lawyer Nik. Good points.
Thanks, Dr. Long. I know we're kind of getting towards the end, so just a few final thoughts from you. Where do you think overall AI in medicine is going to go? Do you think your job will eventually be replaced by artificial intelligence, or do you think that you're here to stay?
I think I'm here to stay, but I do think components of my job will be replaced, whether that is changing maybe how long we go to school for or the curriculum within our medical school. That might be different. I think there would be more of a push to learn how to utilize technology and AI. Right now, we do have some learnings on it, but it's not a official course that you take. Like you're not sitting there learning how to use AI. I do think there are components that will be replaced, but honestly, looking forward, I'm kind of excited for AI. I hope that we get to a point where we can really help lower the costs of medicine. I think that that's where I am hoping AI will do the most work, is whatever it may be, however it may be integrated into our system, our society. I hope it just lowers costs so that everyone can get good care, preventative care, and not reactionary care. Because right now we are so far to the wrong side of how we're dealing with medicine, dealing with insurances. I just hope that AI will help neutralize all of that and just bring down all those costs, make everyone happy, and so that we can just keep the patient as the focus, not insurances, not the costs, not profits, things like that.
I can resonate with you on that because, like I said, information is really important and access to justice is really important. And there are individuals out there that can't afford good legal representation, and AI could allow for somebody that may not be able to hire a lawyer to show up and give themselves a chance at defending themselves, or filing a small claims suit. There's just giving everybody a chance at a low cost is very important. So that resonates with me. Well, guys, thank you guys for tuning in to the Medical Legal Brief, where medicine meets the law. If you enjoyed our conversation today, please go back and listen to some of our other podcasts. We've covered a lot of different topics up till now, but we want you to go ahead and follow us, like us, rate us, comment. We love comments. We like engaging with the comments. If there's anything that you guys want to hear, please let us know and we'll put that as a discussion point. So for now, thank you guys very much. This has been Dr. Long and Lawyer Nik.
Yes, we're doctors. Yes, we're lawyers. No, this podcast is not medical or legal advice. Do not take anything we say as a reason to perform your own heart surgery, represent yourself in court, or diagnose your neighbor's rash. This is for entertainment only. Think of it like hanging out with your smartest, wittiest friends, not a substitute for an actual appointment. If you act on anything we say without talking to your own professional, that's on you. Seriously, don't do that.